Welcome back, viewers, artists, and all alike, to another stream of Art Lounge Alley. This is going to be coloring comics, and I'm very excited to show you guys the India ink purchase that I recently made and the watercolors that I've been using before. I'm going to be doing a live demonstration today, showing you the difference between the two, just talking about the process really. And it's going to be a learning experience for me because I haven't inked. I've inked with India ink. I've been using this India ink right here to ink with, but I've never used these colors. And I can already say that there's a big difference, which is it already comes in liquid form. It's pretty liquidy. Whereas watercolors, and the ones that I got, they're more paste-like. They're kind of like toothpaste, the same consistency. Whereas this is completely liquid. So it's very concentrated, I imagine. The colors are very concentrated. And what I'm going to suspect the difference is going to be immediately is that it is going to be more translucent than watercolors, just simply because of that, because this is more paste-like, this is more toothpaste-like, and this is completely liquid. It's going to be just more transparent, or translucent rather. With watercolor, you could create the same effect by adding water to it, but that kind of dilutes the pigment. So, and what I like about this, I made two purchases. The first time I got it in these plastic tubes, and I figured, well, let me just try it because they were smaller. I was like, let me see what that's like, and then immediately I realized you need a droplet tool in order to squeeze them out onto the palette or whatever it is that you're going to be using on. So if you're going to start pouring it out onto it, that might turn into a disaster. And you'd have to buy like multiple droplets, because if you use one for, let's say, black, and you drip it into the palette, you can't use that same droplet into the other colors. That's immediately going to change the color. You're going to ruin the entire tube or bottle or whatever. There's no reverting that. You can't go back on that. Or you could just keep washing it every time you use it. You drop it, then you wash it, then you drop it, and that becomes a total disaster. So I just returned them. I figured that's too much time wasted. Let me just buy this. It's worth it. They're pretty big. And the droplet tool is also pretty useful. Comes in a rainbow of colors. Many different ones, and it's going to be interesting to mix, because I guess it could be similar to watercolor. It's just going to be in liquid form. But the difference is that because this is more paste-like, and I'm going to squeeze this out onto the palette, if you were to, let's say, mix the colors and then use the brush again to pick up more color from this, for instance, from this paste color, it's not going to get as mucky. You might have like the surface of it. It might get kind of dirty, but you could always like scrape that off and continue using what's underneath it. Whereas with this, if I was to, let's say, get some yellow, and I was going to try to mix the yellow with some green, I'm going to have to constantly wash the brush, because once I dip that yellow into the green, it's going to completely ruin the green in a sense. So it's a different process. It kind of is a different process. But enough describing it. I'm going to get into it. What you guys are seeing, this is an old panel that I did. By old, I mean like, I don't know, a month ago that I was doing this one. This one right here as well. But for this one, I used color pencils. So for those of you who have been part of the stream through the process, you guys remember I switched over to color pencils just to take a break from watercolors, because they did tend to bleed through, or just kind of like make the page a little warped. Like, as you could see, it has a little bounce to it because the water absorbed and warped the paper. So I was getting kind of frustrated with that, honestly. I wasn't getting the results that I really wanted. But after it dried, it really changed. Like, after it dried onto the paper, you guys could see that the colors kind of evened out. They weren't as splotchy as I remember them to be. But I'm looking for another sort of experience. Like, I did enjoy it, but I think India inks are going to produce more smooth results. That's what my guess is. This turned out pretty good as well. I actually didn't expect it to, but if you guys can see that. This panel turned out pretty good. Like, his coat turned out pretty smooth. And the colors turned out pretty decent. So it really is a waiting game, kind of. And then here I used color pencils, and I really did enjoy it. But I do like pencils in general. I really enjoy the experience of using them, which really brings up that point that digital work is not going to substitute doing things traditionally. It's just something completely different, experience-wise or process-wise. You know, you don't get to feel the medium when you're using a Wacom tablet. The only thing you feel is plastic on glass, or glass on glass, or plastic on plastic. Whereas with this, the traditional method, you really get to feel the medium. You get to feel the graininess, let's say, of a pencil, or the smoothness of the paper, or the liquid thickness of watercolors or India inks. You know, there's that experience that I really enjoy. You know, that is a big part, a huge chunk of the process of drawing, or of inking, or penciling, or painting. You know, that's a huge thing. That's one of the most rewarding parts about it. So yeah, you know, this is really what the whole goal of all this is, because I would like to just completely do things traditionally as much as possible, and then, you know, upload stuff for refinement. You know, just do the inking, do the penciling, do the coloring, and then upload that final piece and do a little tweaking here and there on a computer. But great way to take a break from everything digital, from staring at the screen, from technology, you know, from all that stuff, and just turning to a new experience, turning to pages, turning to paper. It's kind of weird saying that, you know, like, I'm thinking about it now, just to think that it's such a process to break away from digital life. You know, like, I have to really be appreciative of that. Whereas I remember times, I guess this is maybe being of a different generation, that things weren't like that at all. Like, you spent most of your time doing things outside of computers, because computers weren't that consuming at the time. We didn't have cell phones at the time. We didn't have internet access all over the place. Things were very much reliant on your ability to just navigate through things yourself. Whereas now everything is so dependent on text messaging and apps and email and all that other stuff, that it just seems like, what was life like without it? But I thought it was more adventurous, to be honest. I thought it was interesting. Not that I'm saying it's not worth it or it's valuable. It's very valuable. I just don't think that it should be substituting anything. These are, as far as this goes especially, I don't think that it can substitute it. The same thing with reading a book. I feel like that's That's something that can't really quite be substituted by, let's say, Kindle or iPads or whatever else. There's something great about it. And I think primarily it's because it's just another medium. It's another experience. You're not constantly staring at a screen. And you're now turning into a different type of object that you're going to be spending time with, as opposed to another computer or as opposed to another piece of digital equipment. Anyways, enough of that rant, right? Let's jump into doing some India inks first, because I can compare to watercolor from my past experience, and then bring watercolor into it again. So I'm gonna move this aside. You guys saw the wheel. Now I'm gonna just show it again. It's beautiful colors, very rich looking colors as well. Like, I really like this green right here. It's a beautiful color. Even though I don't really think that's a green based on the color. It's like a blue green. It's like an aqua color, but it says green on there, and then it says grass green, which makes sense. This is more green, really. This should be labeled green, and this should have a more specific thing. Magenta, absolutely necessary one. Then we got red. Then we got bright red, which is really just orange. Yellow, very nice. Oh, I am noticing something, which is going to be the importance of shaking it up before squeezing anything out. I saw some like pigment collecting on the side of the bottle. That's something that I forget to do very often with a lot of things, shaking them up. Whether it's like shampoos or dressing or plant milk. I always forget to do that, and I think that really changes the experience. Okay, so just, you guys got a glimpse of it. This is also a very pretty color. Very nice. So what I'm going to be doing is some purple here. The way I would like to do this is I'm going to do Conan's coat first. I'm going to play around with that. And then I'm going to switch to a watercolor and do the purple. Or the other way around. I'm going to do the purple on this guy and then do Conan's coat. So I'm gonna get this one out. Gonna give it a nice shake again. I'm gonna be careful because I don't want this dripping on the comic book. That would be incredibly upsetting. Just gonna do 3 drops there. Next I am gonna take a little bit of white because I want to try to and see what mixing is going to be like. It's very easy to use white with watercolors because once again it's pasty. You could take just a tiny smidge and mix it with another color, whereas this is in liquid form. There's no way to have it be in paste form. So I'm really curious to know like what the mixing process is going to be like. And as you guys could see, it's not really bright orange. It could have been on the original because again there was like a long process. They would first do it on acetate paper with a pencil work on top, and the inking, I mean, on top, but underneath it, it'll be this like acetate paper, and I think there the colors were very bright. So I'm gonna dab a little bit, and I'm gonna start right away. Okay, so immediately what I notice is because I'm not mixing it with water, it's already a much more pleasant experience. I'm probably gonna gush about it. I'm gonna be like, this is so great, this is this, that, and the other. But really, I'm gonna have a better idea with it the more I use it. I'm not really noticing much of a difference in terms of how it looks. No, I didn't mix this at all. This is just straight pigment. Very dark. I also wonder what it looks like once it dries. How much it's gonna change. So it kind of has like a nice consistency to it. It's kind of the consistency that I was searching for when I was using watercolors. It's like in between liquidy, but not so liquidy where it's like drenched with water. And a little bit of thickness to it. Now I notice, of course, with the color that I'm using, there's a little hint of red there. So it's like a violet color. So I'm going to try to squeeze a little bit of magenta, mix it up, see if I can get closer to that color. And it really doesn't require much. Just a couple of drops. And I'm going to add it to the mix, the color mix I had before. And no, it's still pretty purple. And I am using a dirty brush to dip into magenta. So there's still some purple on there. I'm testing to see like what all this is going to turn out to be like, mixing and etc. Like what are the colors are going to look like? It's getting there. I'll be honest, I'm a little bummed out that I'm ruining a good panel, because this is one of my favorite panels. I'm liking it. I am liking it. I like the consistency. I'm gonna say more than watercolor. Now another thing to note is that the colors don't get muddy. So you guys saw me put that purple on top of the coat, right? Now I'm going to use a much lighter tone, and notice how it's not mixing. Right, it's not mixing the purple with this lighter tone that I'm putting on top of it. So I have to do less amount of layers if I made a mistake. Like I picked the wrong color the first time. I made that mistake. And now I could go over it. And it's fine. And that's because it dries quicker. So there's no playing around with colors like I was doing with the other panels, especially with this one right here. Where is it? Where is that panel? I know I said I wasn't going to come back to this, but I did tell you guys I'm going to come back to this sketchbook for coloring. Where is it? This panel where I did multiple layers. I was just talking about it. I liked how Conan's coat turned out. What should be? Yeah, I thought so. So like here, for example, I had to do so many layers. I'll just make sure you guys can see it visually. There is a delay. I'm going to say this. There's a delay between when I'm streaming and what you guys are seeing. There's a slight delay there. But yeah, this is it right here. You guys can see it, but I did have to do a couple of layers because the color underneath wasn't right. And I had to go over and over again. Now, the biggest downside to that is I'm adding more and more water. So that warps the paper a lot. The more I was doing it, the more it was becoming like, the paper was becoming fuzzy, which means that eventually I was going to burn a hole through it. And that was frustrating. I was like, oh my God, is it going to happen now? Am I going to burn through the page and ruin the panels behind it and ruin this panel? So it was a bit frustrating. But this kind of takes that frustration away because it dries quickly. And I don't play around with the color underneath that much. And I remember when I was reading about it, I was like, well, what's really the difference? Is that going to be a positive thing for me? Because oil painting, for example, in oil painting, yeah, see, look at that. That's so much brighter and I don't have to worry about the color underneath mixing. That's excellent. I didn't think I was gonna like that, but this is great. Like, strategically, this is a better direction. Okay, India Inks, you've won me over. This isn't just me gushing about something new. There's some great benefits to this. So right, just picking up from what I was talking about, less layers means less likely the paper is going to get warped. Less layers means I'm going to fight less with the previous colors to get the color that I want. So quick drying really is a benefit. I thought, man, that's going to cut my options, you know. If it's going to dry on quickly, then... So, but I didn't think that through. I didn't think that... It's actually great because it won't warp the paper and I won't have to fight the colors underneath the color that I want to be on top. With the purchase, I did get an email address, so I did a little research on India Inks and, well, the specific brand, and apparently there aren't any animal products in it. It is vegan. So I'm happy about it, but I want to still write them and ask them personally, since I have their email address now that I purchased this stuff. They encourage to get in contact with them, so I will absolutely contact them and ask them this question of whether they have any animal products in there. It's going to be frustrating if they did, because I absolutely will use India Inks for this. And the other beautiful thing about this is that since they dry quickly, I could blend things better. So this is a perfect example here. You know, I could still have that purple underneath, but then gradually blend it into the violet color that I want. And even a very slight amount on the tip of the brush is good enough to last a while. Like, I don't have to keep re-dipping into the pigment. So, like, watercolor is kind of like a watered down, literally watered down version of this experience. So far, no water has been used at all. And I'm going to bring that into the equation right now. I'm going to drip a little bit of it, a couple of drops. And I'm going to see what happens when I add water to this experience. Another thing to note is how it dries on the palette, and how often I'm going to have to squeeze more of the pigment. Now with a little bit of water, like I dipped the brush in water and then I mixed it around. I'll show you guys very carefully so it doesn't accidentally spill. But yeah, you could see that this dries out pretty quick. But adding a little bit of water, like I just barely touched it, it makes it pliable again. You just have to kind of mix it around. Not completely, as you could see, like underneath. Gonna just like separate it. You could see that there's still some residue, but you could play around with that residue and eventually work it into a pigment. But just to note, like this right here as well, that's fresh. I just added that today. But just mixing it around a little bit. Eventually, I get some pigment on there. That is purple, but that will dry very quickly. So it is a quick dryer. And this right here, you could see here, that was completely white, or as close to white. But now it's not. Like if I'm gonna tilt it, it drips less. But before it was very liquidy, as you could see, it like slid down because my table was angled. It slid to the base, or to the bottom. But now it doesn't go the other way around because it dried quickly. So I am seeing lots and lots and lots of benefits to Andia inks. And I can say I am very happy with this switch. Just want to make sure that it doesn't have any animal products in it. It's just so unnecessary. I'm going to introduce more white. But as you could see, even like I'm adding the white, and it's so much easier to go over the previous color. I don't have to fight it. I don't have to keep doing layers on top of that, on top of it too, because it's so dark. Now, something I did notice that's a bit problematic is if I go too thick, I'm going to cover up important detail. So I have yet to like play around with that, actually. How much I'm putting on my brush and how well it does with detail. Like if I use very thin amounts of it, is it going to cover up important detail? Is it going to cover up important lines? But still, the benefits outweigh that. If it's a problem, if that is a thing that I have to be concerned with, I'm going to say the benefits outweigh it. I just have to become much better at going around the detail. And also, because it dries very quickly, I think that I could always come back. Whoops, I forgot. Where did I have the white? Okay, there's the white. Yeah, because it dries so quickly, I could always come back with the inks, black ink, and redefine them. Now it's just a matter of finding the right color. This is kind of like chemistry. I'd say even more so than watercolor. Or maybe it is very much like watercolor, it's just that I'm understanding it better than I understood watercolor. But what I mean is, you're dropping little bits and knowing the right amount, I can just mix an entire bottle. As I was demonstrating to you guys, I believe it was the first episode of Coloring Comics where I was talking about like what the process was like back then. If you guys missed that, check that out. It's a good one. I give you guys an example. You could check out the website where I give the examples from as well to get more in-depth description and to look at it at your own pace. But yeah, I just go over that and how they used to actually just mix the vials, and every single place where every single place that would do coloring at the time, they would have like different ones because it was very difficult to achieve the same exact color for each place. They're being done manually, and there were people who were creating it, and they would be like, okay, so R2 and B2 would be like 25% red, 25% blue. So people would like take the droplets and they'll be like, okay, this would be 25%. They would squeeze it into the vial, and they would take the other one, squeeze what they would think is 25% of it, and squeeze that into the bottle, and then shake it up. And that way, whenever they would go back to that color, they could just dip their brush in there and use it without having to like guess each and every time, like, is that close? Is that, the way I'm doing it now basically is playing around with it and trying to get that color. But yeah, there was a science to it. They really did nail things down to a T. Like, okay, it's this percent used. So I'm adding a little bit of water to colors that I did mix to make them pliable again. And I can't tell you guys what a relief it is knowing that this isn't going to warp the paper. Like, I'm doing layers on top of layers here, but because it dries, it actually creates a protective layer. It's not just like wet on top of wet. And that's preventing things from turning into a disaster. It's giving paper a little thick coating. I'm just trying to find that right color right now. Hi, Soft Cookie. Thanks for tuning in. I am having a blast right now playing around with these India inks. This is what, the entire time that I was using watercolor, this is what I was looking for. And it's such a relief. I'm not sure what you were saying there. I love you draw a CC dice. I see. I'm not really sure what you mean there. You might want to retype that so I can get a better idea of what you're saying. And now I could really focus more on trying to get the right colors. I had to speed through before. I had to like quickly, and even though it is kind of good, that it made me like really focus and try to get the color mixing down and really think about it before I was putting the brush down on it. It just didn't leave much room for experimenting. I didn't have enough time almost to play around and figure out like how do I get the right colors and what is the proper amount of each color to get it. So I only had like 2 shots at it, and then after that it became danger zone with watercolor. And by danger zone, I mean the paper would start to warp, and then I would eventually burn a hole into the paper. Yeah, it's almost immediate dry. Like just within a minute or 2. That's excellent. And it kind of creates a different like gradation, as you could see. Like it does go from like light into a little bit dark, and that's because it dries out and it allows me to do thin layers until eventually it's very smooth transition from one gradation to another. That's really cool. Like I didn't think about that at all when I was looking at YouTube videos to see like what the difference is between watercolor and India ink. No, Soft Cookie, this is India ink. This is what I'm working with right now. This is Dr. Phil Martin's Bombay Blue India ink, and amongst other ones. It's this whole rainbow of stuff right here. But gouache is actually another one that I was curious about to see like what the process is like, what the difference is. Maybe some point in the future I'm gonna get myself some and do a little demonstration of that. But the colors are beautiful, I do agree. Soft Cookie is like, ooh. And I totally agree with it as well. Beautiful, beautiful colors. And even though my goal was to try to draw them exactly as I see them in the panels, I am gonna experiment and play around with it more. Like, I really do like that it creates these gradations. It's beautiful. I'm still gonna try to do it with some panels, but I am having a blast playing around with this. And I've been on this one panel for pretty much the entire stream, which just goes to show how well it goes on the paper. Like, it really doesn't warp it at all. And looking at the other side, for those of you who are just tuning in, these are color pencils. All these are color pencils. That's watercolor right there. But yeah, you could see on the other side that it's not warping at all. It's not even coming through to the other side, which is so great. So it really gives me time to like perfect the color, perfect the lines that I'm making. Yeah, that's what really was upsetting me about watercolor. I really didn't have enough time on any panel, on any of the drawings, and I had to quickly move from one panel to the next. So some ways it's good, other ways it wasn't. I'd say for the most part it isn't, because I know eventually with this even I will get much faster once I grasp it. Soft Cookie says, I'm sorry, I hardly know English. I'm from Mexico, but I really like how the color looks and how it's looking. Hey, thanks. Yeah, me too. Thanks, Soft Cookie. I am really enjoying it too. I'm glad you are as well. And that really reinvigorates my desire to do coloring comics more. Unfortunately for now, it's only once a week. I'm going to do it every Wednesday, but other days I'm doing digital. I'm also doing digital painting. So tomorrow, if you tune in, you're going to be seeing me do stuff on Clip Studio Paint. And I'm going to be working on a personal project. It's not going to be from any comic book. It's going to be from my own imagination. So I could tune in then. It's also at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, guys, this is going to be the end of the stream, unfortunately. I hate to end it because I'm having such a great time. I am having a blast with these India inks, but unfortunately it is time for that. But as I mentioned, I will be back tomorrow again at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Drawing Basics. And 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the project stream that I just mentioned. So if you guys tune in then, you'll see more interesting content. And if you do enjoy the content, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. They both help grow the stream, get more people familiar with the Art Lounge Alley, and hopefully bring you even more interesting content going towards the future. So thanks again, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Soft Cookie for being in the chat. And I'll see you guys very soon.